It is a pleasure to be here and to be able to speak with all of you today. A little bit more about myself. I am a community psychologist by training. I'm on faculty at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York City. I have been applying system dynamics and group model building in almost all of my community-facing research. I wanted to start off by sharing my presidential vision with all of you. So born in 1963, which is interesting because that makes me 63 years old this year. Born in 1963 and raised in segregated white Baltimore, my sense of self, my personal curiosities and priorities, and my academic pursuits have been shaped in many ways by the progressive social and political forces of the 60s. These years were a period of rapid social change that saw the United States pivot towards its promise of a fundamentally pluralistic, multiracial model where political and social equality were lauded as core principles. I was just 2 when the Swampscott Conference that launched the field of community psychology took place. This landmark meeting convened psychologists and community leaders to discuss new approaches focused on prevention, social change, and the promotion of well-being through community life. Notably, in 1965, we also saw the passage of the Voting Rights Act, a major legislative achievement designed to move us closer to a more equitable representative democracy. The civil rights movement that defined the social climate of the 60s in the United States shaped the development of the field of community psychology. Community engaged research and advocacy to address structural racism, homophobia, sexism, and misogyny, and to advocate for the programs and policies that improved access to housing, education, mental health care, and services for persons with disabilities attracted many academics and community leaders to our discipline. By the time I started my graduate studies in the mid-1990s in the Ecological Community Psychology program at MSU, Michigan State University, the field was well established with more than 24 competitive degree granting programs available. Today, that body of work that reflects community psychology's many contributions is formidable, with those in other fields, such as public health and medicine, where I work now, affirming the utility of methods that embrace participatory action research and that foster community empowering change. However, despite this progress, we find ourselves at a critical crossroads in 2026. 61 years after the founding of our field, we see a broad retreat by the United States electorate away from the socially progressive aims of those early days. We see the reinstallment of the Trump administration and its exercising of executive power in unprecedented ways. We see the undermining of the Voting Rights Act by our current Supreme Court, Congress, and by some state legislators. We see the demonization of migrants, of transgender men and women, of those who are insecurely housed, and of those who are otherwise disadvantaged by mental health needs, addiction, and poverty. We see threats to academic freedom with deep funding of education programs and research programs that support DEI initiatives, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And through ICE and other federal programming, we see increasing surveillance and alteration of privacy regulations that serves to skirt due process, especially for migrants and other vulnerable populations within and between communities. And we see this at the federal, the state, and the local level. Furthermore, in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in the midst of the communications revolution in big tech, artificial intelligence, and social media, we see both great challenges and great opportunities. On the one hand, we see a rapidly widening income inequality and a retreat from public investment in education and science domestically and internationally. And on the other, we see remarkable discoveries on a near daily basis. For example, in medicine and public health, it's really amazing. I do so much work in cancer, and we are really at the threshold. I'm going to conferences now that are talking about cancer vaccines and things. So it's just amazing. So this is the result of cutting-edge clinical trials in medical bioinformatics. And we see the effects of globalized capitalism on climate change and pollution, which will inevitably, I think, demand improved international relations to address abject problems such as mass migration due to violence and wars and due to climate change disruptions in many parts of the world. So there is urgent work to do on many levels here and abroad. And the Society for Community Research and Action is well positioned to play an important role in mobilizing members in efforts to promote nonviolent direct action and community engaged research for the constructive political, social, and economic change that we need. SCRA can do this by building trusted partnerships with diverse community psychologists all over the world and by clarifying individual and collective roles that its members can play in restoring and strengthening a commitment to a pluralistic, multiracial, representative democracy. Of course, these are my sentiments. I didn't make any kind of like declaration of conflicts of interest and things like that, but these are my words and I'm standing behind them. SCRA can target systematic issues in governance, electoral processes, and institutional accountability, but also support dissemination of evidence-based interventions and policies in peer-reviewed publications and other vetted academic and community sources. We can also explore ways to learn how to use AI ethically to advance information innovations and enhance civic engagement, community empowerment, and government responsiveness. I know that stepping into these responsibilities as SCRA president is going to be a challenge for me on many levels. I endeavor to support these aims to the best of my ability and in a way that aligns with SCRA's core vision and mission, which is to advance community psychology and promote social justice through research, practice, and education. And we have a very well-designed strategic plan that some of you may know about that's being implemented now and will, no doubt, I think, strengthen SCRA's impact on the field of community psychology research and practice. Just to close a little bit more about myself, I am a student of economics, of ecological community psychology, of urban studies, and of psycho-oncology. And I have more than 2 decades of academic research experience. And all of this, I think, makes me an interesting social scientist to take on this role. I've been practicing and doing my work and teaching at Albert Einstein in the Bronx in New York City for some time. I believe that working together with SCRA's executive officers and its executive committee members will leverage this kind of lived experience to date to really help the field.